Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be part 2 of my conversation with Molly Conlin Peterson. We were talking, I would say, kind of the first half of the challenge, so to speak, of being laid off. And I just wanted to continue this conversation. So this will probably be a shorter episode because go back to the previous. I can't, given that I'm a little ahead on scheduling, I can't tell you what episode that is, but it's the one that dropped right before this one. I just want to pick up the conversation where we left off, right? So we were talking about, you've been laid off, the need to kind of take a beat. We talked a little bit about resumes. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit more. We talked a fair amount about networking, taking care of yourself through the process. So just wanted to kind of pick up where we left off. And I would say, I'll just kick it right over to you, Molly. Where's your energy? Where do you want to pick up from here?
Well, I had a thought and a resource that I just wanted to share about networking too, just to kick off, because I know that's where a lot of people's heads go is like, gosh, I got to start this networking process. So there is a book that I always recommend to people, and I usually send it out to my clients. It's called The 20-Minute Networking Meeting.
Yay! My hands are way up in the air. That book is it's the tome for networking. It changed my life. Say more.
I agree. And here's the thing is how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you are setting up a networking meeting and you have a clear agenda, I'm grateful. I have some questions. I'm going to make this a two-way street. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to follow up. You're showing them how you're going to be in work. And it gives us a really beautiful structure of how do I do these meetings that feel really hard. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure. I've never done this before. And so I highly recommend that book. And it also gives you some structure on how to talk about yourself. And I
think there's a bunch of editions of it now too. From when I first read it, it was just the 20-minute networking meeting I think it was for executives or something like that. And it was the only one that existed. Yes. And yes. I had to do, I wouldn't say tremendous mental gymnastics to apply it to, a 30-year-old me. But it was recommended to me by a former HR person who worked at the PDI in Corn Ferry where I was working. So I reached out to her because I knew she was a safe person. I was just like, how do I network? What is networking? I don't get it. I feel like I'm asking people for a job. And she was like, read this book and then come back to me. And I felt like it was a huge unlock for me. But I know there's I don't know which ones. I just tend to say, read that or see what other editions exist, because I feel like there's a few editions that are targeted to different career stages or maybe even professions at this point. I can't say I've looked at much recently though.
Yeah, exactly. I think that look at there's a professional, there's an executive, look at the one that fits you. I think there's one for students as well. So, take a look and just see which one fits for you. Yeah. Give me 1 minute. I got to plug my computer in.
Oh, no worries. While you're doing that, I'm going to say, I think it's hard for people to network. There is this, jokingly, I've always said, hey, if you want to be taken down a notch or two, start applying to jobs, right? Because nothing feels more personal than your applications for your jobs, the jobs that you want, it's this ultimate, do you love me? Do you not, am I going to be accepted? Am I not, experience? And it can suck at times. And so networking can feel like this tremendous putting yourself out there thing. And I think one piece of advice that I tend to give to people is, it's a nothing to lose gamble, really, because today you have 0 meetings on your calendar. And all you have to lose is, and this has kind of also been, frankly, any entrepreneurs or salespeople out there listening, this has been my mentality about sales as well, which is you've got 0 meetings on your calendar today. What do you have to lose by reaching out and just asking for someone's time? Hey, and it's even easier now with virtual. I think one of the things, let me go back to the 20-minute networking meeting, which was actually written in our own backyard, I believe, is Martha Ballinger in our own backyard who wrote that.
Yes.
In the Twin Cities here. And I think back then, the virtual wasn't as, when I first read it, virtual was not as prolific as it is now. So the idea was like, how do you make it really easy and say, basically, it's called the 20-minute networking meeting, so that, think about it at the time. If you were working in a downtown area and you're talking to somebody else who's also probably in the downtown area, you're baking in 5 minutes of walk time on either end and promising this person that you're going to get them in and out of the meeting in 20 minutes so that they can get back to work, right? Even easier now with virtual.
Right.
Face-to-face, always better, but virtual's super easy now too. What's the worst that will happen if you reach out is they say nothing
Right.
or no,
Right.
in which case you still have 0 meetings on your calendar, but the gamble is just so much better on the other side of that, which is most people are going to say yes. And now you've got a meeting on your calendar, right? And at the very least, with networking is you're getting repetitions in and talking about yourself. And if nothing else, networking prepares you for interviewing better than almost anything can do, even mock interviewing, frankly, because you just get these repetitions in of having to kind of talk about yourself off the cuff. So I'll climb down off my soapbox.
Well, you're exactly right, Kent. I mean, I think you make so many great points. First of all, I mean, that it's so much easier now because you can actually reach out on email, you can reach out on LinkedIn, you can ask people to make it. You can look on LinkedIn and see, who does this person know? And you can reach out to that person and say, hey, I see that you're connected to this person and I want a introduction. Would you be willing? So you can do all of that from the comfort of your own home. And and then you can actually set up a Zoom meeting and meet somebody for 20 minutes. You could do 5 of those a day. But the point is that if you don't, it feels scary. It feels uncomfortable to reach out and ask for help. And this is that courage piece. Because if you, in logically we can say, well, if you don't do it, you're not going to move forward yourself forward in the job search. And there's that emotional piece of, I just have to be normalized that this is going to be a little, it would call it embrace the suck. Yeah, it does suck to reach out and ask for help. It does feel uncomfortable. And when you get to the other side, the people that get the best jobs aren't always the most qualified. They're the ones that are willing to take that extra little reach, little extra ask, and and do the things that do feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so I really encourage people who are in that spot, just keep building that muscle. And that's what also it does, is it builds that muscle of, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to take a little risk here. I'm going to take, do this thing that feels a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And start to
build. It does get easier though, right? I think it's nothing's more uncomfortable than the first message you send, right? And then each one after gets, a little easier too. It's repetition. It's like going to the gym, right? It just gets easier. So what else? I know this is a big part of what you do. So what else is kind of top of mind for you, for folks who, at this point, when this episode drops, at least the folks, a tranche of folks at Target and Amazon will be about 2 weeks in. So how, what else is kind of top of mind for you?
So I want to say this because I think this is one where, when there's this scarcity mindset, when we feel like, oh gosh, there's not going to be enough jobs, like I just have to take a job. We talk a lot, about this idea of the quick fix, and I'm going to just say out loud, sometimes a quick fix is needed, like there are times I don't recommend that, because I think then you're ending up in the same spot again. And when people are in transition, it feels really unsettled. And so they oftentimes do want to do that quick fix. And so,
and what do you mean by quick fix? Taking something you don't really want?
Long. I just had a client, here's an example. She's 9 interviews in and she's seen yellow flag, red flag. She's like, I should just take the job. And I'm like, let's go back to what you said at the beginning about what you wanted for culture, what kind of person you wanted to work, let's go back to those core values that you said were important.
Mhm.
And how do you ask the questions to make sure that these little red flags and yellow flags are coming up? Make
Mhm.
sure that, you can feel good about moving forward. And so she did, and her intuition was correct that this was not going to be a good fit for her. And so when you're in that spot, like I think she knew this, like it's a two-way street. I feel like to make sure that when you are interviewing for jobs, that you're asking those good questions so that you're not just taking something just to land, that you're taking something. And she ended up landing in a really good spot. She landed in a great spot. Um, but she was able to ask those questions there. But I think sometimes when you're in that place of, oh, I just need to land, you're
Mhm.
not asking the right questions back because you don't want to know, or you don't want to. So going back to that first part of like really getting clear about what's important to you, so that, and I think that's also the piece that also employers want is, why do you want to work for me?
Mhm.
What's meaningful about
God, that is so hard in this when you're in this spot, right?
right?
And I have feelings on both sides of that equation. One is, first of all, I would almost say if you're a recruiter and it's November 2025, soon, it's only today, we're recording on November 3rd. December is going to be here before we know it. We're then sitting at 7, 8 months. There's 200,000 people out of work right now.
Mhm.
Maybe think about some of these questions, like, why do you want to work here? Because frankly, I know you're looking for someone to say, because I've loved your company forever and I'm
Right.
so bought into the mission. And, um, but there's a part of me that's like, have some humanity and maybe give me a break a little bit here on questions like that, to be perfectly honest. But, and I get it, in a normal time, you're hoping that someone's done hours of research.
Right.
And
Well,
yet, let's go to the other side of the fence, because I'm sure you've got advice for people there on, and yet you should probably do some research and say why you're interested.
right. Well, I think that the thing is, here's what I would say about that is that you're trying to set yourself apart because there's so many people applying for roles, right? And
Mhm.
there's so many people. So how do you, we know that, you take somebody, their skill set, their very best self profile, you pair that with something that's meaningful, they're going to achieve at the highest levels. So people who are hiring, now they have a flood of people who can probably competently do that job. So they're now not moving to just the competence piece, but there's those intangible things,
Mhm.
right? Is there a connection there? Did somebody make that introduction? Does this person, like, are they really resonating with the work? Do they have a story to tell around why they want to do this?
Mhm.
So how do you set yourself apart from the other, X number of applicants that, to our point earlier, if you're using AI, a lot of these resumes look a lot alike. And
Mhm.
so I think that is there's a few ways that you set yourself apart as an applicant, and that can be one of them. Is
Let's
is
We mentioned AI last time, right? We kind of talked about how, well, you probably should be using AI as a thought partner. Don't have it do the work. I always say that. Don't just have it spit out a new resume, because you no longer know what it did, what it didn't do, and maybe it got into an AI hallucination and said you worked at NASA when you haven't. Um, but certainly ask it for recommendations. How can I tweak my resume best to match
Mhm.
this job profile? Now, the other thing I keep seeing people talking about people doing, and I'm seeing some of the videos out there suggesting that people do this, is like, like tape your phone to the middle of your monitor and use one of these AIs that can listen in and give you your answers. Don't do that, right? Like I was just at a SHRM conference the other week, and I don't remember what company, but it was like a head of recruiting who was saying, like, it is our policy that if we feel like using AI in the interview, and there's telltale signs. It takes you longer to, suddenly it's taking you a little bit longer to think. They can see your eyes scanning, what you're reading, and they will end the interview and cancel, the application immediately. Like, don't do that. Now, you probably can use it to do some mock interviewing, right? You probably can use an AI to be like, hey, what are some of the questions that might be asked? Do you have recommendations based on my resume, or depending on how you're using AI, for how to answer, but do not use it mid-interview is my,
I agree with you, Kat. Yeah. And that's the one place you have the opportunity to have that authentic connection and to have those stories. We all have, the star stories. I mean, that's still very relevant. Give me some examples,
Yeah.
share some stories of when you've done these different things, you've solved problems, or you've demonstrated leadership, or
And I know the Target folks out there are, from my memory, when I used to do a little consulting with Target, they were pretty well practiced in. They might even use was it like the STAR or whatever, interview protocol or something like that. Like they're pretty good at that. But let me back up a step and say, what's your advice to people on cover letters? Right? I think that was a big thing 15 years ago.
yeah.
Is it still relevant? Do you recommend people do it?
I think that it can be helpful, but if you're applying online, oftentimes the cover letter isn't even needed anymore. It's
Yeah.
just easy. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not.
Mhm.
I think anytime that you can set yourself apart, do it differently, send a resume. I mean, like, I think we're in this spot right now. It's like, how do you get someone's attention? The first step would be, obviously, if you can get an introduction.
Right.
Everyone's applying online. You absolutely should apply online, but you can also send a hard copy with a cover letter. And that might get somebody's attention because nobody else is doing that. And
Yeah.
so it's thinking about those creative ways of, how do I set myself apart? How do I get someone's attention? Sending a handwritten thank you note, sending those ways that people don't normally do, sending somebody a book, somebody, after an informational interview, or something that's
I
tangible.
like what you said in our previous episode, which was, if they said something relevant, this could both be for a hiring manager that you've talked to, and that's a 3-week process, or even someone you're networking with. If you're reading, staying current and reading maybe articles that are in the space that you both coexist in, is, hey, saw this, thought of you, just, wasn't sure if you saw it, wanted to send it your way. All right. I'm going to pepper you with some questions because I'm looking at our time again. And I know it's going to be a little shorter than part one, but I asked you the cover letter question, and I'm like, ooh, I have other little, like, let me throw these questions at you too. Sometimes on LinkedIn, they say who the recruiter is. What's your thoughts on reaching out to that person and sending them a message?
What do you have to lose? I mean, that's where I'm at, is what do you have to lose? It's if you don't reach out, then you're in the same boat that you were when you started. So I would highly recommend, this is those little moments of just do the reach out. You want to be persistent and not be a pest, obviously, but there's nothing to lose. I don't know if you have a different opinion on that or not, but
Well, here's what I'll add to that. If you've done the job and you know that you are 100% qualified for the job,
yes,
then go for it, right? But I have heard, right, and there might be some danger in this current environment with so many people out of work that, that they're getting, their job gets posted and they suddenly get inundated with, a couple hundred
yeah,
in-mails.
yeah, oh yeah.
So if you're going to reach out, I would say table stakes would be you're actually qualified for the job. It's not a stretch, right? You've done the job. It's not a stretch. Bonus points if you know someone, right? Like, there's multiple connection points for why they should pay attention to your message. I like the boldness, though. I like your boldness because it kind of goes back to even the boldness of networking, which is what do you really have to lose? So I'll go with that. I would also say if you don't want to get 200 in-mails as a recruiter, you probably shouldn't be tagged as the recruiter for the job posting, right? I feel like this is where like, I feel like it's kind of asking for it because I'm pretty sure it's a toggle you have to click to
Right.
have your name associated with the posting. Um, so if you don't want in-mails, maybe don't.
Mhm. That's a fair statement. I mean, I think recruiters are really struggling right now to sift through everything. And so I mean, my heart goes out to them because it's an impossible job just by
Yeah.
looking at a bunch of resumes. How am I going to sort through? So I think they're like it. They need help. They need guidance. Like who should I be? Like how do I even begin with this? Because
Yeah.
I think just I was at a career conference and somebody said they had 30,000 applications for a job. Like I think it's who knows if it's just AI and it's easy apply, easy apply, easy
Yeah.
apply, you know. And so how do these recruiters figure out who they even start with?
This is where it's like, everybody who's applying for jobs hates the applicant tracking system, but the reality is a human cannot read through, if I think about, and I'm thinking this isn't even just Fortune 500 companies who are experiencing this, who probably, the largest HR team at most Fortune, probably 1,000 companies is probably the largest HR team, maybe next to comp or benefits, right?
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
that still doesn't mean, but that also means there's so many jobs being posted. But again, so you can't expect a human to read 30,000
No,
resumes. You
no,
can't expect a human to read 100 resumes
no.
for an individual job opening. Yeah.
Right. Right.
How do you, as you think about helping people prep for interviewing, what are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that those star stories are really I think like 80% of the work is thinking it through ahead of time. So
Mhm.
you really do want to think about your stories, you want to think about how you want to message, how you talk about yourself. You want to talk about, what are your strengths and your weaknesses and be strategic about that related to the job. Um, but I think those star stories and having, even if they're not specifically asking for examples, integrating those and weaving them in, having some numbers and things at the ready that share your accomplishment in tangible ways. And oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Because you were kind of talking about results, right? And it made me think about resumes, right? Because it
Mhm.
was probably 10 or 15 years ago now when the advice kind of started to turn from just having your resumes list out your job titles and job duties to starting to say, what are the results? What's a results focused resume? Um, as someone in HR, that has sometimes felt hard, right? To think about like, well, geez, what are the results? Because um, it's really easy to think about a salesperson or somebody who has a P&L, who's managing a P&L, to talk about results, right? There's hard financial metrics that those folks can use. Um, but I know when it came to HR and then the counseling that I've given other people is like, well, think about timelines, think about numbers, like how long did it take you to get a project from, idea to launch?
Mhm.
How many people did you manage
Yes.
through that process? How many people did a program you did touch? Did those
Right.
programs win any internal or external awards? Um, I'm trying to think of other thoughts on that, but I know that can be. But those same results stories need to make their way into the interview too, right?
100%. And being able to quantify it some way, it doesn't have to be like to your point, a salesperson can say, I sold X percent, where somebody can say, hey, I accomplished this in a tighter timeline, or we impacted, 50 people's, lives in this way, or, my leadership team, we created a culture that was really like, it doesn't have to be all numbers either. It can be some of those softer things that are, and especially if you're going for a job in HR, that's what they're going to be looking for. I mean, it's still results. It doesn't have to always have a number. Numbers are really great if you can quantify it.
Yep.
Have
Yeah.
a couple numbers on your resume.
If you manage people, how is retention, right?
Right.
How
Yes,
many,
exactly.
did you have good retention? Did you have a good
Mhm.
process for hiring people, right? Like think
Yeah.
about some of the things that you're, proud of that
Mhm.
you can pull out as a result.
Yeah.
I'm watching our time. It's going to be a shorter.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead. This will
Yeah.
be a
Yeah.
shorter episode than this one. So, but I want to get to at least one more, Molly, one more hot button issue on your mind when it comes to either how you do career coaching or just with where this sheer number of people might be at in the process right now.
Yeah. So let me think that through. I think I would just say making sure that I think everybody's going to for those bigger companies oftentimes, and thinking about like there can be smaller company like there's a million smaller businesses
Mm-hmm.
that are out there, and those may have one or two roles because everyone's often goes to those larger
Yeah.
companies and floods those companies. So look for some of those hidden gems in
Do they use
terms.
elsewhere? I mean, I think most of us these days are probably going to LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Where else do you recommend people go to look?
I mean, your network, obviously, but LinkedIn can be a really great place you can do, I mean, people do this and to do this, but job titles or
Yeah.
industries and see who comes up in your network and see who you're
Mm-hmm.
connected to. And so use that as a jumping off point, not then take that extra step and reach out to that person and say, hey, I see that you're connected to this person. Would you be willing to make an introduction for me?
Yeah.
You
Are
know,
Indeed or Monster, are any of those still relevant in your experience?
I mean, I think you can look at all of it to find jobs, you
Mhm.
know, but I think to the point we were just talking about, to find a job and to just apply online is maybe not the best use of time.
Sure. Fair enough. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
find the job, then start to do a little research and digging to see who might be a connection there or how you might find somebody that's a connection there. And then, yes, you probably will apply online, but you want someone to walk the resume or make the call or do an email introduction
Yep.
or find that side step in if at all possible.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that note, right? Because I think you're calling, I think, which is often the case when I'm talking about people who are in transition. It all comes back to networking as much as people may or may not want to hear that.
Right.
Um, so I think maybe one other piece on networking is, are there local, in particular, local trade associations that you uh, already belong to
Mhm.
or, can join? I would
Yep.
say, again, I was the most recent local society for HR management,
Mhm.
association. I know that group
Yeah.
has like a benefit, I guess. I don't know how you want to call it, but like a program for people who have been recently laid off, where they will give you a 1 year membership to start
Oh,
joining, to
great.
just join
Yeah.
immediately, right?
Love it. Yeah.
And I would say with the sheer number of layoffs happening, I would be. I mean, I guess I couldn't say how other trades outside of, how other job families outside of HR do things, but
Yeah.
um, in the times I've gone to both that and the Association for Talent Development
Hmm.
groups, there's
Yep.
always been some kind of conversation at the beginning of those, either those monthly calls or meetings or the larger day long things around like even having people if you're on the job market, raise your hand, right? And those those of you whose hands are down, look around, and
Right.
these are people they do encourage that live networking, especially with people who are displaced, right? So
Yes. Yes.
um, and I know it might not be the easiest thing to think about around like, is this what I really want to spend a few $100s on right now when I
Mhm.
don't know where my next paycheck's coming? Um, but I would say it's probably the worth the gamble, right? And even ask like, hey, do you have a program for people who've been recently laid off to
Right.
join? You never
Right.
know.
And that's another way that you usually can bring a guest to some of
Mm-hmm.
those. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody who's not laid off, or if there's somebody in your network that's laid off, bring them as a guest. But I agree, professional associations can be tremendously
Yeah.
helpful, and that's where you can start to build those relationships. And I think that's what we're talking about. How do you
Yeah.
build more relationships or deepen those relationships that are existing? So it's not about I'm asking you for a job, but we're
Yeah.
getting to know each other, and I can add value.
Yeah.
And
Maybe that let's add that as homework, right? To those of you who are networking out there, right? Ask if you don't know who what trade associations are out there in your space.
yeah, of
Ask the people that you're talking to. Hey, what are the other, because I could sit and rattle off some from my own background and experience, but
course.
ask the people that you're networking with, right?
I agree. I think
Okay.
that's really great. So I think that sums it up, that we're talking about the heart of this is human connection and building those connections. And that is the doorway in, and having the courage to put yourself out there and knowing that sometimes it's not going to work out, and getting back out there and having somebody to support you. Find your people.
Love it. What's one last piece of advice that you have for our listeners of episode 2?
I think just be really there's this idea that if we're harder on ourselves, we're going to do better, and
Mm,
that is actually not the case. The research
yeah.
does not bear that out. The research bears out when you are kinder and soft to yourself, you give yourself a soft place to land, and you have people
Mm,
around you, because this is hard work. This is
yeah.
going to require you know, it's an emotional roller coaster in some
Yeah.
cases.
Yeah.
And so just to be really kind to yourself. And then I think, just to take really good care of yourself, just
Yeah.
emotionally, physically, get out there and exercise. You need a place to process, do whatever you can to just stay, active mentally, spiritually, engaged in your life and all of those other ways, because at the end of the day, the more positive emotions you can experience in your life, we know this,
Yeah.
the more possibilities you can see, the more you're going to show up for those people when you are connecting in a better way, that's going to make them want to hire you. So by you taking really good care of yourself, you show up as a brighter light, and that's who people
Yeah.
grab want to bring in.
Love it. All right. I know you need to run. So for those people out there who want a little more Molly Conlin Peterson in their lives, how can they find you? What would you encourage them to go look for?
So my website is www.thedaringventure.com. And right now I am offering free 30-minute sessions to anyone who
Nice.
just needs a boost, needs a little advice, needs a little soft place to land. If we can continue that, if you want to sign up for coaching, but if you also just are feeling stuck and
Yeah.
I just don't know what to do here and I need somebody to talk to, I am here. And
Love
I'm
it.
offering that up right now. And you can just get on my website and sign up for a 30-minute session.
So that's right on the website.
That's right on the
Awesome.
website.
All
Yes.
right. Well, take her up on it. Molly, thank you for going a little long and ending up doing an ad hoc 2-part episode. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to have you on again.
My pleasure, Ken. Thank you so much. This was so lovely. It was really lovely to be here. And thanks for supporting people in transition, because that's what you're doing. Like you're changing lives with this podcast. It's really, really cool. Yeah.
Thank you
You're
so
doing
much.
your
All
work.
right.
All right.
Take care. Bye.
Take care.